You know that really highly specific, almost visceral feeling when you first walk through the double doors of a massive commercial gym.
Oh, absolutely. It's a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially if you haven't been in a while,
Mm.
or, maybe you just never really been a gym person.
Yeah, the sensory overload hits you immediately.
It really does. Like the blast of overly air-conditioned air just smacks you right in the face.
Yeah.
And you get that distinct, sharp smell of, I don't know, rubber floor mats and,
Chalk dust.
yes, chalk dust and sweat. And then there's the noise. It's not just the thumping electronic music they always play.
Right. It's the rhythmic clanking of the iron.
Exactly. The clanking, the grunts, the really aggressive dropping of heavy dumbbells.
It induces a very real, acute spike in cortisol for most people before they even swipe their membership card.
Oh, I completely believe that.
Yeah.
And then you look over the free weight section, which is, supposed to be the promised land of muscle building.
And it's just packed.
Packed with these massive guys pushing massive weights. And if you're like most people, standing there in your fresh, clean sneakers, this very specific emotion just washes over you.
Complete and utter overwhelm.
Complete overwhelm. You look at these impressive physiques,
Yeah.
and your brain immediately makes this subconscious calculation about what it took to get there.
And that calculation is almost always skewed, by the culture we see portrayed online or in magazines.
Yeah, totally.
The assumption is basically that you have to surrender your entire existence to the iron.
Right. You think, well, to build muscle like that, to actually change the shape of my body, I have to give up my life.
Yeah, that you need decades of logging 2-hour shifts in the squat rack.
Exactly. It feels like it requires carrying around those little plastic Tupperware containers of plain, unseasoned chicken breast everywhere you go.
And boil broccoli.
Ugh, the boiled broccoli.
Yeah.
It just feels like you have to make fitness your entire personality. And for you, the listener, sitting here with us, who likely has a demanding day job, a family, a mortgage, maybe some actual hobbies outside of a gym, it just feels entirely unattainable.
Which is precisely the tragic reality of the fitness industry today.
Tragic is a good word for it.
It is, because that intimidation factor is exactly why so many people either never start or they start with this unsustainable, punishing routine and just burn out within a month.
They try to go 0 to 100.
Right. They're trying to adopt the extreme peak-level lifestyle of a professional bodybuilder when, their actual goal is just to feel a bit stronger.
Yeah, improve health markers, look a little better in a t-shirt.
Exactly. The gap between the goal and the perceived method is just massive.
And closing that gap is exactly what we're going to do today.
I'm excited for this one.
Me too.
Yep.
Because our mission for this deep dive is to completely dismantle that gym bro culture, to cut through the endless, contradictory social media fads.
There are so many of them.
So many. We're going to translate the overwhelming biological jargon into something you can actually use today. And our foundational material today comes from a highly pragmatic, really no-nonsense breakdown by the team at BFit.ai.
No, their research is fantastic.
It really is. We're
Okay.
looking at their programming, specifically a piece titled, "You're Doing It Wrong. Here's How to Actually Build Muscle."
It's a brilliantly grounded piece of work. Because what it fundamentally highlights is that unless your life's ambition is to cover yourself in spray tan and step onto a brightly lit stage to become Mr. Olympia,
Which, no judgment if it is, but
right, no judgment, but for the rest of us, building a great, strong physique is actually a very straightforward, predictable science.
that's not dark magic.
No, it is basic biology, and it's governed by a set of physiological principles that literally anyone can master if they just tune out the noise.
Well, we are going to master those fundamental principles together today. We're stripping away the supplements, the influencer workouts, all the hype.
Let's do it.
But before we can even talk about lifting weights, before we touch a single dumbbell, we have to talk about the physical materials required to build the muscle in the first place.
You can't build a house without bricks.
Exactly. You wouldn't hire a crew, give them a blueprint, and then forget to actually order the bricks.
You cannot build a structure out of thin air. And the human body operates under those exact same laws of physics and biology.
It needs raw materials.
It requires raw materials to synthesize new tissue.
Which brings us right into the kitchen. Let's demystify protein and calories.
The foundational stuff.
Right. I want to start with the core biological rule of thumb laid out in this research. To build muscle, the baseline requirement is to consume roughly 1 gram of protein per pound of your body weight daily.
Yeah. That is the golden ratio of hypertrophic nutrition, 1 gram per pound of body weight.
Okay, I have to push back on this right away because my immediate thought, and I guarantee this is what you, the listener, might be thinking right now, is
Yeah.
if 1 gram per pound is good, wouldn't 2 grams be a shortcut to faster growth?
Oh, the more is better track.
Exactly. If I want to build that house twice as fast, I order twice as many bricks, right?
Yeah.
I see guys at the gym drinking protein shakes before, during, and after their workouts. Shouldn't I just be gorging on protein?
It's a highly logical assumption based on how we view, productivity in other areas of life.
Right. Work harder, get more.
Yeah, but human physiology emphatically does not work on the more is always better principle.
It doesn't.
No, the body operates on strict thresholds and maximum enzymatic capacities. The data points to a landmark study from the Journal of Applied Physiology, which clearly demonstrates that roughly 1 gram per pound is the absolute maximum amount your body can efficiently process and utilize in a given day.
The maximum. So wait, if I weigh 180 pounds and I force down, say, 300 grams of protein, what is my body actually doing with that extra 120 grams?
Well, it certainly doesn't just magically turn into bicep tissue.
Darned. So what does it do?
It's essentially biologically expensive waste. To understand why, we really have to look at how digestion works.
Okay, lay it on me.
When you eat a chicken breast, your body doesn't just staple that chicken meat to your chest.
That would be horrific.
Very much so. Your digestive system, specifically using stomach acid and enzymes like pepsin, has to break that protein down into its fundamental building blocks.
Which are amino acids, right?
Exactly, amino acids. These enter the bloodstream and go to the liver. But the liver has a processing speed limit. It can only synthesize so much protein into human tissue at one time.
Oh, so it's like a bottleneck on a highway.
That is a perfect way to look at it. And when you flood the highway with far more cars than the toll booth can handle, the body has to do something with the excess.
It can't just leave them parked there.
Right. It goes through a process called deamination. The liver strips the nitrogen away from the amino acids, turns that nitrogen into urea, which you then excrete in your urine, and the remaining carbon structure is either burned as basic energy or stored as body fat.
Wait, really?
Yeah. You are literally just creating expensive high nitrogen urine and extra body fat.
Wow. Okay, that is incredibly liberating to hear. You don't need to be consuming prehistoric caveman amounts of meat to make progress.
Not at all.
But it raises another question for me. Why do we even need that much in the first place? Like, why is it a whole gram per pound? Because to a normal person who maybe just has a turkey sandwich for lunch and some pasta for dinner, 160 grams still sounds like a lot.
It does sound like a lot, but that's because your body is a highly dynamic, incredibly demanding machine.
How so?
It is constantly draining its available protein reserves for crucial, life-sustaining uses. Protein isn't just for building aesthetic muscles,
Right, it does other stuff.
A lot of other stuff. It's required for creating vital hormones, manufacturing digestive enzymes, maintaining your immune system's white blood cells, repairing skin, hair, nails.
So basically the maintenance crew for the whole building.
Exactly. Right now, as we sit here talking, your body is breaking down old, damaged proteins and synthesizing new ones.
It's a constant state of turnover.
Precisely. So, to actually add new muscle mass, which, by the way, your body views as a metabolically expensive luxury.
because muscle burns calories just to exist, right?
Exactly. To convince your body to build that luxury tissue, you have to create what biologists call a positive nitrogen balance.
Okay, let's ELI 5 that. Explain positive nitrogen balance, like I'm 5 years old. What does nitrogen have to do with my chest day?
Fair question. So nitrogen is a unique chemical element found in amino acids, which, as we said, are the building blocks of protein.
Okay.
Carbohydrates and fats don't contain nitrogen. So scientists measure nitrogen in the body as a direct proxy for your protein status.
I see.
If you excrete more nitrogen than you take in, you are in a negative balance. Your body is cannibalizing its own muscle tissue to survive.
Yikes. So it's tearing down the house for firewood.
Exactly. But if you take in more nitrogen than you excrete, you are in a positive balance. You have a surplus of building material.
You outpace the breakdown.
You have outpaced the body's natural daily breakdown, leaving leftover bricks to finally start building that new room on the house.
Okay, that makes perfect sense.
Ah.
So let's visualize this for the listener so it doesn't just sound like abstract math on a whiteboard. Let's take an average guy, say a 160-pound man.
Okay, 160 pounds.
According to the rule, he needs 160 grams of protein a day. What does that actually look like in real whole foods? Because I think people envision having to eat like 6 whole rotisserie chickens a day.
It's surprisingly manageable when you actually track it. For that 160-pound individual, hitting 160 grams doesn't require extreme eating at all.
Walk me through a day.
Let's break down a hypothetical day. Say for dinner, you have an 8-ounce chicken breast. That's roughly 70 grams of protein right there in one single meal.
Oh, wow. So that's almost half the daily requirement right there.
Exactly. Then let's say you have a cup of cottage cheese as an afternoon snack. That gives you another 25 grams.
We're at 95.
For breakfast, you scramble 3 whole eggs, which is about 18 grams. You have a tall glass of milk with it. That's another 8 grams. Nice and easy.
You snack on a handful of almonds or peanuts at your desk, bringing in another 7 or 8 grams.
Okay, so wait. We haven't even factored in lunch yet. And doing the math, you're already at, what, 128 grams? Just from those staple items?
Yes. Throw in a reasonable turkey sandwich or a salmon fillet for lunch, and you've easily hit the 160-gram target.
No force feeding required.
None at all.
But what about protein shakes? Because if you look at fitness marketing, the supplement industry makes it seem like if you don't chug a fluorescent blue, chemically flavored shake, the literal second you leave the gym, your muscles will just wither away into nothing.
The research we're analyzing is very clear on this, and it flies in the face of those billion-dollar marketing campaigns. Shakes are strictly for convenience, not magic.
So they aren't inherently better than food.
There is nothing anabolic about a powder that you cannot get from a steak or a lentil stew. In fact, real whole foods should always be the priority.
Why is that, though? Isn't isolated whey protein scientifically faster absorbing? I thought speed was the whole point. It is faster absorbing, yes, but speed isn't the only metric of quality. Whole foods come packaged with a complex matrix of micronutrients, vitamins, minerals, dietary fiber, and healthy fats that a highly processed powder simply lacks.
So it's about the whole package.
Right. The fiber in whole foods actually slows down digestion, providing a steady, sustained trickle of amino acids into the bloodstream over several hours.
Oh, which keeps you in that positive nitrogen balance longer.
Exactly. It's highly conducive to keeping you in the green, so to speak. You use a protein shake to fill the gaps when cooking a meal isn't feasible, or if you're traveling, you do not use it as the foundational pillar of your diet.
Okay, so protein is the bricks. We've got that covered. But house isn't just bricks. What about the rest of the diet? We have a lot of calories left over in the day.
Yes, once you've secured that structural foundation of 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, the remaining calories for the day should be split relatively evenly between dietary fats and carbohydrates.
Let's talk about fats first, because people still fear fat.
We cannot ignore fats. They are fundamentally essential for hormone production. The cholesterol found in healthy fats is the literal chemical precursor your body uses to synthesize testosterone,
Which is the primary hormonal driver of muscle growth.
yes.
So if you go on one of those extreme, ultra-low-fat diets, you're essentially tanking your testosterone.
You are chemically castrating your own muscle-building potential, yes.
That is a stark way to put it, but very clear. And what about carbs?
Carbohydrates are your body's absolute preferred energy source. Carbs convert into glycogen, which is stored directly inside the muscle tissue, to fuel the intensely hard mechanical work you're going to do in the weight room.
Okay, so we have the building blocks waiting in the kitchen. We've ordered the right amount of bricks. We have the fat for hormones, the carbs for energy.
We're ready to build.
But here is where the science gets really, really interesting. We know what to eat. But when exactly should we send those materials to the construction site?
Timing.
Because according to the data, timing is a massive game-changing variable.
It really is. We are moving from the raw materials into the timing paradigm. Nutrient timing, specifically regarding how you fuel your body immediately before and after a mechanical stressor like a workout, can profoundly alter your physiological response.
See, I always thought the undisputed golden rule was the post-workout anabolic window.
Right, the famous 30-minute window.
Yeah. Every magazine in the 90s and 2000s said the exact same thing.
Right.
Lift the weights, you tear the muscle, and then you have exactly 30 minutes to sprint to the locker room and slam a protein shake before the window closes.
And if you miss it, you wasted the workout.
That's what it felt like. But the deep dive completely flips that logic on its head. Let's talk about that surprising 2001 University of Texas study, because this genuinely made me rethink my entire routine.
This is one of the most fascinating pieces of data in sports nutrition, and it's shocking how rarely it is implemented by the general public.
Set the scene for us.
Okay, researchers at the University of Texas took a group of trained lifters and gave them a very specific liquid shake. It contained exactly 6 grams of essential amino acids and 35 grams of simple carbohydrates.
Very precise.
Yes. They took half the lifters and had them drink it before they worked out. They took the other half and had them drink the exact same shake after they worked out.
Same exact nutrients.
Yeah.
Just a difference in the clock. And the results?
The results were staggering. The lifters who consumed the amino acid and carbohydrate mixture before their workout increased their muscle protein synthesis significantly more than those who took it after.
Really?
Yes. Their bodies were exponentially more primed to utilize those amino acids to build muscle.
Wait, make it make sense to me. Explain the mechanism there. Why would pre-workout fuel be more effective than feeding a muscle that has just been exhausted?
It comes down to blood flow and hemodynamics. Think about what happens when you lift a heavy weight.
Okay.
Your heart rate elevates, right? And your blood vessels undergo vasodilation. They expand widely to rush oxygen and nutrients to the working muscles.
Right, they swell up.
The muscles literally swell with blood. It's what bodybuilders famously call the pump.
The pump, yeah.
Now, if you drink that protein and carb mixture 30 minutes before you started lifting, those amino acids have had time to digest. They are currently circulating in high concentrations within your bloodstream.
Oh, I see where this is going.
So when your body aggressively pumps blood into your biceps or your quads during the exercise, it is actively force-feeding those exact working muscles the exact building blocks they need.
At the precise moment they are experiencing microscopic trauma.
Exactly.
It's like making sure you put premium gas in your car before you go on a strenuous uphill road trip, rather than waiting until you've already driven 100 miles on an empty tank to finally fill it up.
That is a phenomenal analogy. You want the fuel in the engine while the engine is actually doing the hard work. You are delivering the repair materials to the site of the damage as the damage is occurring.
And the post-workout group.
The post-workout group had to wait for their heart rates to drop, their blood flow to normalize, and their digestion to start up again before those nutrients ever reached the muscle. They completely missed the period of maximum circulatory delivery.
That is wild. That completely changes how you prep for the gym. It makes so much logical sense. But wait, let me play devil's advocate here for a second.
Go for it.
The research we're looking at says we still absolutely need carbohydrates post-workout. Why? If the protein synthesis is already spiked to the ceiling from the pre-workout meal and the amino acids are already in the muscle, what are the post-workout carbs actually doing?
To understand this, we have to look at the darker side of the biological equation.
Ooh, the dark side.
Remember earlier we talked about how the body is constantly breaking down proteins?
Yes, catabolism.
Well, heavy resistance training is an intense physical trauma. It actually increases the rate of protein breakdown in the hours following a workout. Your body enters a highly catabolic state.
Catabolic meaning destructive, right?
Right, exactly. Catabolism is the breaking down of complex molecules into simpler ones. When you put your body under the extreme stress of lifting heavy weights, your adrenal glands release high levels of a stress hormone called cortisol.
Which everyone always says is bad.
Well, its job is to mobilize energy to help you survive the stress. But it does this in part by aggressively degrading your muscle tissue to convert those amino acids into glucose for energy.
So wait, you go to the gym to build muscle, but the stress of the gym actually forces your body to eat its own muscle. That feels like a cruel biological joke.
It is a cruel paradox, which is why we need a biological brake pedal to stop that catabolic process dead in its tracks.
And what is the brake pedal?
The brake pedal is a hormone called insulin.
Insulin.
Yes. When you consume carbohydrates immediately post-workout, your blood sugar rises. In response, your pancreas rapidly secretes insulin to shuttle that sugar out of the blood and into the cells.
Okay, but wait. Insulin often gets a terrible reputation in modern diet culture because chronic high insulin can lead to fat storage.
It does get a bad rap. But in the acute context of the post-workout window, insulin is highly anti-catabolic.
So it stops the cortisol.
Precisely. A massive spike in insulin directly blunts the release of cortisol and halts the breakdown of muscle protein. It acts as a cellular signal.
A signal that says what?
It tells the central nervous system, hey, the stress is over, we are fed, we have abundant energy available, you can stop tearing down the muscle tissue for survival.
Wow. So the pre-workout amino acids and carbs maximize the building phase and the post-workout carbs minimize the destruction phase.
You've got it.
By doing both, you dramatically widen the net gap of total muscle growth. That is incredible. Let's give the listener some actionable, real-world examples so they can apply this today.
Good idea.
Pre-workout, the data suggests 10 to 20 grams of protein plus some carbs. That's essentially one standard scoop of whey protein powder and a piece of fruit.
Very simple.
But what if you hate shakes? Or what if drinking a bunch of liquid sloshes around in your stomach and makes you nauseous while you're doing heavy squats?
It absolutely doesn't have to be a liquid supplement. The biological mechanism does not care if it's a shake, a bar, or real food, as long as it's easily digestible.
So what's a good alternative?
The research suggests a very simple one. A whole wheat sandwich with 4 ounces of deli turkey and a slice of cheese, eaten an hour or two before the gym.
That's just a normal lunch.
Exactly. You get the complex carbohydrates from the bread to give you sustained energy throughout the workout, and you get the high-quality, easily digestible amino acids from the turkey circulating in your blood right as you hit the weights.
Perfect. And post-workout, we need that immediate insulin spike to hit the brakes on the cortisol. Do we need some fancy, expensive maltodextrin carbohydrate powder?
Keep it incredibly simple and cost-effective. A ripe banana, a standard sports drink like Gatorade to quickly replenish muscle glycogen, or even a classic peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
A PB&J.
Yeah. You just need a rapid source of carbohydrates to trigger that pancreatic insulin response and halt the muscle breakdown.
Okay, so the body is fully fueled. The bricks are on site, the workers are paid, the biological brakes are calibrated. Now we actually have to step onto the gym floor and apply the physical stress that forces the body to adapt.
The fun part.
The fun part. And this brings us to what I believe is perhaps the single most toxic, counterproductive myth in the entire modern fitness industry: the cult of training to failure.
Ah, yes. The exhaustion myth. The idea that suffering equals success.
I have to push back hard here on behalf of everyone listening, because if you open any social media app, every single motivational fitness video, every influencer with a microphone screams the exact same mantras at you.
No pain, no gain.
No pain, no gain. Leave it all on the floor. If you aren't crawling out of the gym, if you aren't throwing up in a trash can, you didn't work hard enough.
Yeah.
It's a culture entirely built around gladiatorial suffering.
It really is.
Are you seriously telling me that trying my absolute hardest every single day is actually destroying my progress?
Yes, I am.
Really?
In fact, from a pure physiological standpoint, if you train to absolute nervous system exhaustion every single day, you are virtually guaranteeing that your body will never, ever get a chance to actually grow.
Why?
You are running on a hamster wheel of systemic inflammation.
But how is that possible? Make it make sense to me. If the physical stress of lifting the weight is the trigger for growth, shouldn't maximum stress equal maximum growth?
It seems highly intuitive on the surface, yes, but it completely ignores the complex underlying physiology of recovery.
Walk me through it.
Let's break down what actually happens on a cellular level when you lift weights. You need to understand this fundamental truth. You are not building a single ounce of muscle while you are in the gym.
You're not.
No. You are doing the exact opposite. You are inflicting targeted physical trauma.
Trauma.
Yes. You are creating thousands of microscopic tears in your muscle fibers. You are depleting your local glycogen energy stores. And most importantly, you are heavily taxing your central nervous system.
The brain and spinal cord.
Exactly, which have to send the intense electrical signals to make those muscles contract.
So going to the gym is basically just organized self-destruction.
Yeah.
You are digging a hole.
Precisely. You are intentionally digging a hole. Now, when you leave the gym, go home, eat, and sleep, your body has to frantically fill that hole back up with dirt just to get your tissues back to normal.
Back to baseline.
Right, back to their original baseline. That process is called recovery.
Okay, but recovery isn't growth. Getting back to zero isn't a gain.
Exactly. Muscle growth, or what biologists call hypertrophy, only happens after recovery.
Oh, I see.
It's when the body, having survived the trauma, decides to pile a little bit of extra dirt on top of the hole so it doesn't get dug so easily next time. It reinforces the structure. That addition of extra dirt is called overcompensation.
Overcompensation. Okay, I'm following the logic perfectly.
Now, apply this to the no pain, no gain mentality. If you train to absolute agonizing failure every single day, you aren't just digging a hole. You are using an excavator to dig a massive systemic crater.
Just massive damage.
Yeah. And your body then has to spend 100% of its energetic resources, all of its protein, all of its immune system capacity, just trying to fill that massive crater back up to baseline.
Before you go into the gym and selfishly dig it all out again the very next day.
Exactly. It never has the surplus energy or the sheer time to overcompensate. It never gets to add the extra dirt.
It's just treading water.
Never getting ahead. You are perpetually stuck in a state of chronic inflammation, elevated cortisol, and central nervous system fatigue. Your joints ache, your sleep degrades, and your muscle mass remains entirely stagnant.
That is a massive paradigm shift.
Yeah.
So what is the optimal dose of stress then? If we shouldn't be destroying ourselves daily, what does the science actually recommend for consistent growth?
The deep dive establishes a very strict scientifically backed limit to protect your central nervous system.
Okay, what's the limit?
It states that intense, heavy workouts that take you very near to exhaustion should be strictly capped at 3 times a week.
Only 3.
And crucially, they should never be performed on back-to-back consecutive days. Wow.
Your nervous system requires a minimum of 48 hours to recalibrate the acetylcholine and other neurotransmitters required for peak contraction.
3 days a week. That is so much less than the 6-day bro splits everyone pushes online.
It gets even more strict. Furthermore, when you are actually in the weight room on those 3 days, your total volume of work should be strictly limited to between 12 and 16 total sets per session.
Yeah, hold on, let me make sure I heard that right. 12 to 16 sets, total, for the entire workout.
Yes, total.
That is going to deeply shock a lot of people listening to this.
Yeah.
I mean, I know guys who go in on chest day and do flat bench for 5 sets, incline bench for 4 sets, decline for 4 sets, cable flies for 4 sets, and then push-ups to failure.
Oh, easily.
They are hitting 30 or 40 sets a workout. You're saying 12 to 16 sets is the ceiling. That's maybe 4 exercises total.
That kind of excessive 40-set volume is exactly what leads to the severe diminishing returns in overtraining we just discussed. It's junk volume.
Yes. The first 10 to 12 hard sets apply the maximum biological stimulus your body can actually respond to in one day.
So anything after that is pointless.
Any set you do after that isn't stimulating more growth. It is only exponentially increasing the recovery time required. 12 to 16 hard, highly focused sets are more than sufficient to trigger maximum hypertrophy without exceeding your systemic recovery capacity.
You know, I hear the science, and it makes logical sense. But practically speaking, I think there is a massive psychological trap here.
Oh, absolutely.
We are so culturally conditioned to equate feeling physically dead with having a productive workout. Like if we do a 14-set workout and we wake up the next day and we aren't incredibly sore, if we can actually walk down the stairs normally, we feel like we failed.
We feel a profound sense of guilt.
Exactly. Guilt, like we didn't work hard enough. How do we overcome the psychological need to suffer for our gains?
It is a very common psychological hurdle, especially for highly driven people. But you have to mature your mindset. You have to learn to recognize the nuanced biological difference between productive fatigue and dangerous exhaustion.
How do you differentiate the two?
Productive fatigue means the target muscle feels worked, it feels full of blood, you experienced a deep cellular burn during the final reps.
Right.
But when you walk out of the gym doors, you actually feel energized. Your mood is elevated.
And dangerous exhaustion.
Dangerous exhaustion, on the other hand, is systemic. It's when your actual joints throb, your nervous system feels fried and shaky, your resting heart rate is elevated the next morning, and you are mentally dreading the thought of going back to the gym.
That sounds miserable.
You have to repeat this mantra. The goal of training is to stimulate the muscle, not to annihilate the organism.
Stimulate, not annihilate. I really love that phrasing, but it brings up a huge logistical problem. If we only have an allowance of 12 to 16 sets per workout, that is incredibly precious real estate. We absolutely cannot afford to waste those limited sets on the wrong exercises. We need maximum return on investment for every single set.
Absolutely.
Which perfectly bridges us into the hierarchy of movements, compound versus isolation exercises.
This is exactly where we separate the highly efficient science-based programs from the inefficient, time-wasting ones.
Okay, let's break it down.
If you have a strict physiological budget of 16 sets, you have to spend that currency on the mechanical movements that yield the highest systemic growth stimulus. And biomechanically speaking, those are unequivocally the multi-joint compound movements.
Define compound movement for the listener.
A compound movement is any exercise that forces multiple joints to flex and extend, which thereby requires multiple large muscle groups to contract simultaneously to move the weight.
So squats, deadlifts, pull-ups, overhead presses, barbell bench presses.
Exactly, the big heavy lifts.
But wait. I can hear the listener right now, especially the guys whose primary goal is aesthetic. They are saying, I don't care about being a powerlifter. What if I just really want big arms? Why can't I just use my 16-set budget to do bicep curls, tricep extensions, and lateral raises all day?
It's a common question.
Why do I have to suffer through heavy, exhausting squats if my only real goal is for my t-shirt to fit tighter around the arms?
Because that fundamentally misunderstands how the human body is wired to grow. The human organism does not operate as a collection of isolated, independent, disconnected parts.
It's not Mr. Potato Head.
Right. It operates as a single, highly integrated systemic unit. When you perform a massive, heavy compound lift, like a barbell squat or a deadlift, you are forcing the body to act in unison. This mirrors real-life functional movement patterns.
Right, because you never just isolate a bicep in nature. If you're picking up a heavy rock or climbing a tree, your legs, back, core, and arms all have to fire together.
Never. Evolutionarily, isolation makes no sense. And more importantly, to your listener's goal of bigger arms. Because compound lifts recruit so much overall muscle mass at once, they allow you to move significantly heavier external loads than isolation exercises.
Ah, right. You might be able to curl 40 pounds, but you can row 150 pounds.
And heavy weight is the primary mechanical trigger.
For growth.
Yes. But there's an even bigger factor. Moving massive loads with multiple major muscle groups simultaneously triggers a profound systemic hormonal cascade.
A hormone dump.
Exactly. The sheer stress of a heavy deadlift signals your endocrine system to release massive amounts of endogenous testosterone and human growth hormone into your bloodstream.
And those travel everywhere.
Those hormones bathe your entire body, including your arms. So paradoxically, doing heavy squats will actually help your biceps grow faster than just doing curls because of the systemic hormonal environment the squats create. A bicep curl simply cannot replicate that endocrine response.
That is fascinating. Let's use a specific example from the deep dive material to illustrate this, because I think it paints such a clear picture of efficiency. Let's look at the heavy dumbbell row.
One of the best.
A lot of gym goers might think of that as just a specific back exercise or even an arm exercise, but biologically, it's doing so much more than that.
The heavy dumbbell row is a masterclass in compound efficiency. To pull that heavy 80-pound dumbbell up toward your chest, yes, your biceps are contracting heavily to flex the elbow.
Obviously.
But your latissimus dorsi, the massive sweeping muscles of your back, are the primary movers pulling the humerus backward. Meanwhile, your rear deltoids and rhomboids are retracting your shoulder blade.
And what about the rest of the body? Because you're standing bent over, usually supported on a bench or a rack.
Exactly. Your entire core, your abdominals, obliques, and spinal erectors, is firing incredibly hard in an isometric contraction just to stabilize your torso and keep your spine from twisting under that massive asymmetrical load.
That's a ton of work.
Furthermore, your grip, forearms, and hands are working to maximum capacity just to hold onto the iron. You are literally training half of the musculature in your entire body with a single sweeping movement.
It's pure biological efficiency. You're getting 4 or 5 muscles stimulated for the price of one single set.
Which is how you maximize that 16-set budget.
So where do isolation exercises actually fit into the puzzle? Are bicep curls and tricep pushdowns just completely useless? Should we ban them from the gym?
Not at all. Isolation exercises absolutely have value, but they must be viewed through the correct hierarchical lens.
Which is?
They are the dessert, not the main course.
Oh, I like that.
The main course of your workout must always be the heavy compound lifts. Once you have eaten your steak and potatoes, once you have fully stimulated the nervous system with your squats, rows, and presses, then and only then can you have the dessert.
You've earned the curls.
Right. You use isolation exercises as target finishers at the end of the session to hit specific, stubborn areas that might need a little extra local volume, but they should never, ever be the backbone of the routine.
Okay, so how do we actually structure this into a single, cohesive 16-set workout? Because the research gives a very specific, highly practical blueprint for applying this in real life. Let's break down the rep ranges, because I see a lot of confusion there.
A lot of confusion.
Some people say do 3 reps, some say do 15, some say 20.
The blueprint suggests a hybrid approach that triggers multiple pathways of adaptation. It suggests leading off every single workout with one pure strength exercise.
Okay.
You pick a heavy, multi-joint compound lift, say the barbell bench press or the squat, and you do 3 to 5 reps per set, resting for several minutes in between.
Wait, why only 3 to 5 reps? That seems so low.
Lifting near maximal weights for very low repetitions builds sheer mechanical power and neuromuscular efficiency. It physically thickens the contractile proteins in the muscle, a process called myofibrillar hypertrophy.
Myofibrillar hypertrophy. That's enough.
But more importantly, it trains your central nervous system to fire faster and recruit a higher percentage of available muscle fibers simultaneously. You are literally upgrading the neurological software that controls the muscle.
So that first exercise is heavy, low rep, purely for strength and nervous system activation. You're waking the body up and saying, we need power.
Correct. Then, for the remaining movements in your workout, the other 3 or 4 exercises that make up the rest of your 12 to 16 set budget, you drop the weight slightly, maybe to 70% of your maximum.
Okay.
And you shift your rep scheme to 3 sets of 10 to 12 reps.
And what does that higher rep range accomplish that the heavy sets don't?
This moderate 10 to 12 rep range maximizes something called metabolic stress and cellular swelling.
The pump.
The pump. When a muscle works continuously for 30 to 40 seconds, blood pools in the area and metabolic byproducts like lactic acid accumulate. This triggers what is known as sarcoplasmic hypertrophy.
Sarcoplasmic, okay. What's that?
It's an increase in the fluid, glycogen, and energy-producing mitochondria surrounding the muscle fibers. This pathway is what primarily drives the actual physical, visual size of the muscle.
I see. So the heavy 3-rep sets build a dense, strong engine, and the 12-rep sets build the big, flashy chassis around it.
Yes.
It truly gives you the best of both biological worlds, sheer power and visual size.
Precisely. It is a highly optimized division of labor.
Okay, let's step back and look at the whole picture. Let's say our listener is doing everything right.
Okay, perfect scenario.
They are fueled properly with pre-workout amino acids. They are resting adequately between sessions, strictly adhering to the 16-set limit. They are focusing on heavy compound lifts, and they are getting stronger. Every week, they add 5 pounds to the bar. They go from benching 135 to 145 to 185.
You're making great progress.
But eventually, inevitably, a day will come, maybe 6 months from now, maybe a year, when they walk into the gym, they put the next 5 pounds on the bar, and they physically cannot lift it. They're completely tapped out. Does their progress just stop forever? Are they doomed to never build another ounce of muscle because they hit a strength plateau?
This is a highly critical juncture. This is the exact moment where 90% of amateur lifters hit a brutal plateau, get deeply frustrated, and either quit the gym entirely or start jumping onto bizarre, ineffective fitness fads hoping for a miracle.
Why do they fail?
They fail because they hold a fundamentally flawed belief. They believe the only way to force muscle growth is to add heavier plates to the barbell.
We call this progressive overload, right?
Yes, progressive overload is an absolute, non-negotiable biological law for muscle growth. Your muscles must continually be subjected to an ever-increasing novel demand to force them to adapt and synthesize new tissue.
So the stress has to go up.
If the stress doesn't increase, the muscle has no biological reason to grow larger. But as the research brilliantly points out, adding raw physical weight is only one single method of achieving that overload.
I absolutely love the quote from the analysis on this. It points out a very obvious, undeniable, logical truth that we all seem to forget when we're staring at the bar.
Oh, the 300-pound bench quote.
Yes. Quote, if adding weight was the only way to progress, everyone who goes to the gym consistently would be benching 300 pounds by now.
It's so true. It's a mathematical and biomechanical impossibility to just keep adding 5 pounds a week linearly forever. If you could, human beings would be squatting small cars.
Right.
Eventually, human biomechanics, leverage, and individual genetics dictate a hard ceiling to raw structural strength.
It's exactly like leveling up your character in an RPG video game.
I love this analogy.
Think about it. In the very beginning of the game, you level up simply by finding a bigger, heavier sword. You do more damage solely because the physical sword is bigger.
Right. Simple addition.
But eventually you reach the late game, and you find the absolute biggest, highest tier sword in the entire game. You physically cannot get a bigger weapon.
So what do?
How do you keep getting stronger to beat the final boss? The game forces you to manipulate other variables. It lets you swing your current sword faster. Or you learn a specialized technique that lets you swing it with perfect form, using less stamina.
Or you add magic to it.
Exactly. Or you learn to swing it for a longer duration. You are still progressing, you're still doing more damage, but you are progressing along entirely different, more nuanced variables.
That is a highly accurate, perfect analogy for advanced hypertrophy training. If the physical weight on the barbell cannot change, we must intelligently manipulate the other variables of the lift to create a greater challenge for the central nervous system.
And the local muscle tissue.
Exactly. The deep dive outlines several highly effective, scientifically validated ways to do this without adding a single ounce of iron.
Let's break those down sequentially. The first one is simple, adding repetitions.
Very straightforward, yet highly effective.
Yeah.
Let's say you deadlifted 200 pounds for 10 reps last week. This week, you try to lift 205 pounds, but you fail.
You just can't get it off the floor.
Right. So you strip the 5 pounds off, stay at 200 pounds, but instead of doing 10 reps, you grind out and successfully complete 11 reps.
What does that do biologically?
By completing that 11th rep, you have forced the muscle to perform more total mechanical work under the exact same load. You have subjected it to an increased demand.
Overload achieved.
You have successfully achieved progressive overload, and the muscle will be forced to adapt.
What about form? The source material mentions improving form and execution as a direct metric of progress. I feel like people don't view form as a tool for overload. They just view it as a safety thing.
Oh, form is the ultimate tool for targeted overload. This is often entirely overlooked by ego lifters.
Give me an example.
Let's look at that 200-pound deadlift again. Last week, you lifted 200 pounds for 10 reps, but let's be honest about how it looked. Your last 2 reps were sloppy.
Your lower back rounded slightly.
Your hips shot up too fast, and you used upward momentum to essentially heave the weight up.
We've all been there.
We have. Now this week, you do the exact same 200 pounds for the exact same 10 reps. But this time, every single repetition is razor sharp. You control the weight perfectly, your spine is locked in a neutral position, your lats are engaged, and you use zero momentum.
Biomechanically, what have you done?
You have forced the target muscles, the glutes and hamstrings, to perform 100% of the actual mechanical work rather than relying on momentum or allowing other secondary muscle groups to compensate for the weakness.
So the target muscle is actually working harder, even though the weight is the same.
That increase in tension on the target tissue is progressive overload.
That is such a huge liberating shift in mindset. Quality over quantity. Perfecting the execution is literally building muscle.
It is.
And then there's the variable of rest time.
Manipulating rest intervals increases the metabolic density of the workout. If you normally rest 120 seconds between sets of heavy squats, you allow your muscles ample time to clear out lactic acid and replenish ATP, the cellular energy currency.
Okay, so what if I cut that rest down?
If you cut that rest down to exactly 90 seconds while lifting the exact same weight for the exact same reps, you are violently forcing the muscle to perform work while it is still in a state of partial metabolic depletion.
Oh, man.
You are forcing it to recover faster and perform under significantly greater cellular fatigue. Again, a greater biological challenge. Progressive overload achieved.
These are all fantastic practical tools that anyone can use tomorrow. But I want to spend a significant portion of this section detailing what I think is the absolute secret weapon for hacking progressive overload.
I think I know what you're going to say.
The material calls it TUT, or time under tension. Can we take a very deep dive into this? Because understanding the biology of this completely blew my mind and changed how I lift forever.
Time under tension is a masterclass technique. It is the hallmark of an advanced, intelligent lifter.
Break it down for us.
TUT refers exactly to what it sounds like. The total cumulative amount of time your muscle fibers are actively contracting, firing, and working against the gravitational resistance of the load during a given set.
Okay, that makes sense.
Now, most amateur lifters only focus on the first half of the equation, lifting the weight up.
Right.
They aggressively heave a barbell up to their chest, and then they completely relax and let gravity essentially drop the weight back down to the starting position.
Right, the lifting part.
Yeah.
The concentric phase.
Yes. But biologically, there are 2 distinct halves to every single repetition you perform. The concentric phase is where the muscle fibers actively shorten to move the weight against gravity.
And the other half.
Then there is the eccentric phase, where the muscle fibers have to actively lengthen under extreme tension as you control the weight back down.
And the eccentric phase is where the real magic happens, isn't it?
It is the primary driver of structural adaptation. From a purely physiological standpoint, the eccentric phase is actually where the most significant microscopic muscle damage occurs.
Wait, really? Explain the microscopic mechanism there.
Yeah.
How does lowering the weight cause more damage than lifting it?
To understand this, we have to look inside the actual muscle cell. Inside your muscle fibers, there are thousands of tiny interlocking protein structures called actin and myosin filaments.
Let me stop you and try an ELI-5 analogy here. Think of actin and myosin like millions of tiny microscopic ratcheting hooks grabbing onto each other and pulling the muscle fiber shorter.
That is a brilliantly accurate visualization.
Thank you.
So during the concentric phase, when you lift the weight, those tiny ratcheting hooks slide smoothly past each other, grabbing and pulling, shortening the muscle.
Sounds peaceful.
But during the eccentric phase, when you lower a heavy weight, those hooks are actively trying to hold on and keep the muscle short. But the immense force of gravity pulling the weight down is forcibly ripping those hooks apart, lengthening the muscle while it is desperately trying to contract.
Oh, it's like a microscopic tug of war, where gravity is slowly winning, and the fibers are sustaining micro tears as they are pulled apart.
Exactly. That violent lengthening contraction causes profound microtrauma to the actin and myosin structures. And as we discussed extensively earlier, repairing those specific microtears is exactly what leads to overcompensation and muscle growth.
So if you just heave the weight up and then let it drop quickly, you are completely bypassing the eccentric phase.
You are.
You are literally missing out on more than half the physiological growth potential of the exercise. You are doing 100% of the sweating for 50% of the results.
You are robbing yourself of the most potent stimulus.
So how do we hack this biology?
By intentionally aggressively slowing down the eccentric phase. You lift the weight at a normal explosive speed during the concentric phase, but then you deliberately fight gravity every single inch of the way down.
The BFIT protocol suggests a highly specific tempo trick to guarantee overload, right?
Yeah. You must take 3 full, agonizing seconds to lower the weight on every single repetition.
Okay, picture this for the listener so they understand how hard this really is. You are doing a standing bicep curl. You curl the 30-pound dumbbell up in 1 second. You squeeze hard at the top.
Right.
Now, instead of just dropping your arm back to your side, you slowly, excruciatingly lower it. 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000. You don't hit the bottom until the 3rd second.
If you execute that properly, by the time you reach the bottom of the 5th repetition, your muscles will be absolutely screaming.
I can imagine.
Think about the math of time under tension. If you typically perform a sloppy set of 10 reps, and each rep takes 1 second up and 1 second down, the entire set takes 20 seconds total.
Quick set.
But if you switch to this 3-second lowering tempo, that exact same set of 10 reps now takes over 40 seconds to complete.
You have literally doubled the time under tension. You've doubled the duration of the mechanical stress.
Exactly. And you achieved a massive increase in cellular trauma and metabolic stress without adding a single ounce of physical weight to the dumbbell. You spark entirely new pathways of muscle growth simply by altering the time domain of the physics.
It is an incredibly humbling technique. I can warn you right now, if you try this, you will have to use significantly lighter weights than your ego is used to.
Leave the ego at the door.
Definitely. But the deep burning stimulus is massive. The research highly suggests trying this tempo trick on your very final set of an exercise.
That's a great place to start.
Yeah. On your last set of squats or push-ups, just slow the descent down to an absolute crawl, fight gravity for 3 seconds, and see what happens to your muscles.
It is a phenomenal, highly advanced way to ensure you squeeze every single drop of potential adaptation out of the muscle tissue before you walk out of the gym doors.
All right, so let's review the massive biological journey we've been on so far. You fueled the muscle perfectly, ensuring a positive nitrogen balance with 1 gram of protein per pound. You've masterfully timed your nutrients, putting premium gas in the tank with pre-workout amino acids, and spiking insulin post-workout to hit the brakes on cortisol.
Check.
You've stressed the muscle smartly by sticking to a strict budget of 12 to 16 sets of heavy compound lifts, avoiding that catastrophic daily exhaustion trap.
Yes.
You've meticulously logged your progressive overload, maybe adding a rep here, perfecting your form there, or drastically increasing your time under tension. You've executed the active portion of building muscle completely flawlessly.
Which brings us to the final and perhaps most crucial phase of the entire biological equation.
And ironically, for the ambitious, type A-driven people who desperately want to change their bodies, this is almost always the hardest discipline of all to master.
It really is.
The discipline of doing absolutely nothing, the silent growth phase. Let's talk about sleep, the psychology of patience, and the harsh reality of biological timelines.
We touched on this concept briefly earlier when discussing the exhaustion myth, but it bears repeating and expanding upon as its own foundational, non-negotiable principle.
The gym versus the bed.
The gym is exclusively where you break muscle. The bed is exclusively where you build it.
The BFIT Deep Dive gives a very hard, uncompromising number here. 8 to 10 hours of quality sleep per night.
That's the target.
I can already hear the collective frustrated groan of every busy professional, every parent of toddlers, and every overworked student listening to this.
Oh, I know. It's tough.
In our modern culture, telling someone to get 8 to 10 hours of sleep feels like telling them to take a luxury vacation to the Maldives. It feels impossible.
I understand the modern logistical constraints, believe me. But we have to look at this through the lens of evolutionary biology. Deep sleep is a biological imperative, not a luxury.
Especially when training hard.
This is especially true when you are intentionally subjecting your body to the intense mechanical trauma of heavy resistance training. Sleep is quite literally when the endocrine magic happens.
Break down that endocrine magic. What is actually happening in the brain when we sleep?
When you enter the deepest stages of sleep, specifically slow-wave sleep, which typically occurs in the first half of the night, your brain sends a profound signal to your pituitary gland, which is located at the base of your brain.
And what does it do?
In response, the pituitary gland releases a massive pulsatile surge of endogenous human growth hormone, or HGH, into your bloodstream.
The master recovery hormone.
Exactly. This hormone, acting in concert with the testosterone your body produced from dietary fats, rushes through your circulatory system.
But it goes to the muscles.
Yes. It signals your cells to aggressively utilize all those circulating amino acids we talked about in Section 1, using them to repair the microtears, synthesize new, thicker actin and myosin filaments, and construct entirely new muscle tissue.
So if you chronically shortchange your sleep, if you stay up until 2 a.m. scrolling on your phone and wake up at 6 a.m. to go grind at the gym, you are essentially shutting down the entire biochemical construction site, just as the workers are arriving with the bricks.
That is a perfect summation. You are actively blunting the precise hormonal response that makes all the painful workouts and the disciplined eating worthwhile.
You're digging the hole, but refusing to let the body fill it back up.
Exactly. However, the researchers behind this data are highly pragmatic. They acknowledge the reality that for many people, 8 uninterrupted hours might be physically impossible due to unyielding life constraints.
A newborn baby waking up, rotating shift work, a highly demanding corporate job.
Life happens.
So what do we do if we simply cannot get the sheer quantity of hours? Are we just doomed to stay small and weak forever?
If you cannot control the quantity of your sleep, you must ruthlessly, obsessively optimize the quality of the sleep you do get.
So make those hours count.
If you only have 6 hours in bed, those 6 hours need to be the deepest, most restorative, uninterrupted, slow-wave sleep humanly possible.
How do we biologically hack the quality?
The research recommends maximizing the physical environment to trigger the brain's natural circadian rhythms. First, the room must be completely pitch dark.
Even small lights.
Even small amounts of ambient light from a street lamp or an LED clock can suppress the pineal gland secretion of melatonin, the hormone that initiates deep sleep. Use blackout curtains or a high-quality eye mask.
Okay, dark.
Second, the room must be remarkably cool.
Why, cool. Doesn't a warm, toasty bed feel cozier?
It might feel cozy, but biologically, a rapid drop in your core body temperature is the primary physiological signal that tells your brain it is time to transition into deep sleep.
Oh, really?
Yes. Keeping the ambient room temperature around 65 degrees Fahrenheit dramatically initiates sleep faster and deepens the restorative cycles.
65 degrees, okay.
And finally, it must be quiet. You have to treat the sanctity of your sleep environment with the exact same meticulous, uncompromising respect that you treat your heavy squat sessions.
That makes a lot of sense. You control what you can realistically control. But there's another profound aspect to this silent growth phase that goes far beyond just getting enough REM sleep.
The mental side.
It's the emotional side of fitness. It's the psychological stamina and the mental fortitude required to actually see this arduous process through to the end. And that all comes down to the hardest word in the English language. Patience.
Impatience is the absolute enemy of physiology.
I think we need to address this directly with you, the listener, eye to eye. Because here is the brutal reality. If you listen to this deep dive and you do everything we've talked about today perfectly,
The perfect protocol.
if you nail the positive nitrogen balance, if you perfectly time your pre-workout carbs, if you execute flawless eccentric squats, and you sleep 9 hours in a freezing dark room,
You've done it all.
you're going to wake up tomorrow morning, look in the bathroom mirror, and you're going to see absolutely zero physical change, nothing.
Not a single difference.
And you will likely feel a massive wave of frustration. We want immediate return on investment for our suffering.
We live in a highly digitized world of immediate, frictionless gratification. You want a product, you click a button, and a drone drops a package on your porch the next day.
You want food, an app delivers it hot in 20 minutes. You want entertainment, you stream it instantly.
And the modern fitness industry heavily capitalizes on this psychological conditioning by selling blatant lies. 30-day shred challenges, 6 weeks to a six-pack programs, or add 2 inches to your arms in a month.
But human cellular biology does not and cannot respond to artificial marketing timelines.
No, it cannot.
I love the analogy we've used before. Changing the structural, biological composition of your physical body is a slow cooker process, not a microwave. You cannot rush the chemistry.
A slow cooker, not a microwave. Exactly. The listener desperately needs anchored, realistic expectations so they don't get discouraged and quit when they are literally just inches away from the finish line.
The BFit data provides some phenomenal, grounded, scientifically accurate metrics for this timeline. Let's give the listener the actual, realistic benchmarks they need to look out for so they know if they are on the right track.
The first major biological benchmark is the 2-week mark. The physiological data states that it takes about 2 solid weeks of consistent, positive nitrogen balance and progressive mechanical tension to see a reliable, measurable change on the bathroom scale.
Not a visual change in the mirror, but a gravitational change on the scale.
Exactly.
And what if 2 weeks of perfect discipline go by, you step on the scale on day 14, and it hasn't moved a single pound? Does that mean the entire scientific protocol is broken? Are your genetics just cursed?
Absolutely not. It requires zero emotional reaction. It simply means your thermodynamic energy equation needs a slight clinical adjustment.
Clinical adjustment, no panic.
Right. If zero weight is gained by week 2, it fundamentally means you are not in a sufficient caloric surplus to synthesize new tissue. The engine doesn't have enough extra fuel.
Well, you do.
The protocol advises simply adding 500 calories a day to your diet at that specific point, perhaps an extra peanut butter sandwich or a larger serving of rice, and then waiting another 2 full weeks to assess the data again.
I love that. It's purely clinical. It's just data collection and course correction. Yeah. There is zero emotion needed. You don't cry about it. You just eat another sandwich.
Precisely. Now let's address the benchmark everyone actually cares about. Visual aesthetic changes.
The mirror.
How long until you actually look fundamentally different when you take your shirt off in front of the mirror? The data states that it takes 8 to 12 weeks of highly consistent, dedicated training and nutrition for real, noticeable, undeniable visual changes to manifest in the muscle tissue.
8 to 12 weeks. 2 to 3 straight months of grinding, eating, and sleeping before you look different. That feels like an absolute eternity when you are staring at the mirror every single morning, hyperanalyzing the vascularity in your biceps.
Which is exactly why you shouldn't stare at the mirror every morning. You have to trust the biological process. Here is what is happening under the hood during those first 2 months. Your central nervous system adapts first.
That's crucial to understand.
It is. You will get significantly, measurably stronger in the first month before you get even a millimeter bigger.
Explain that. How can a muscle get stronger without getting bigger?
Because strength is a neurological skill before it is a physical structure. Your brain is learning to fire the existing muscle fibers more efficiently, recruiting more motor units simultaneously, and improving the coordination between agonist and antagonist muscles.
Oh, that makes sense. It's like a software update.
A perfect analogy. The actual structural changes, the physical synthesis of new, thicker actin and myactin filaments, the addition of cellular fluid, takes a massive amount of time to accumulate to the point where it alters your outward physical silhouette.
You essentially have to blindly commit to a 90-day contract with your body before you are allowed to judge the results.
Yes.
Well, we have covered an incredible amount of biological ground today. We have dismantled a lot of toxic gym myths. Let's gently summarize these core, unsexy, but highly effective scientific fundamentals so they stick with you, the listener, the next time you walk through those gym doors.
The pillars are remarkably simple, but they demand absolute consistency.
Pillar 1, the bricks. Hit your protein target, 1 gram per pound of body weight, prioritizing whole, nutrient-dense foods over highly processed powders.
Yes, real food.
Pillar 2, the timing. Put premium gas in the tank before you lift with pre-workout amino acids and carbs, and use a rapid insulin-spiking carb source afterward to aggressively hit the brakes on cortisol and muscle breakdown.
Pillar 3, the dose. Respect the biological limit of the central nervous system. Execute no more than 12 to 16 hard sets per workout and cap your intense sessions at 3 times a week.
Stop treating the gym like an exhaustion contest. Stimulate, do not annihilate.
Pillar 4, the hierarchy. Rely heavily on the systemic endocrine response of heavy compound lifts. Squats, deadlifts, heavy rows, and presses. Use isolation movements like curls and extensions solely as the dessert, never as the main course.
Pillar 5, the overload. Find highly creative ways to force progressive adaptation. If you mathematically cannot add more weight to the bar, you must add reps. Ruthlessly perfect your biomechanical form, or drastically increase your time under tension with slow, agonizing 3-second eccentric lowering phases.
And finally, Pillar 6, the recovery. Guard your deep sleep with your life, optimize your dark, cold room, and give the complex biology 8 to 12 full weeks to actually synthesize the tissue.
Master these 6 foundational principles before you ever waste a single brain cell worrying about complex, exotic fitness fads or obscure supplements or whatever highly edited routine the latest fitness influencer is pushing on your feed.
Absolutely.
Now, if you're listening to this and you want to dive even deeper into the specific programming, or maybe you want to mathematically calculate your specific metabolic needs based on your unique body weight and lifestyle.
We covered a lot of math today.
We did, and the team at BeFit.ai has some truly incredible tools and resources available for that.
They absolutely do. Their entire analytical approach aligns perfectly with the biological realities we've discussed today, firmly grounded in peer-reviewed science, completely free of the usual hyper-commercialized industry hype.
We always say it. Knowledge really is your best, most reliable personal trainer. And their free resources make taking this complex cellular biology and applying it to your busy life incredibly easy and frictionless. Definitely check them out when you're ready to construct your permanent routine.
It's a great resource.
And hey, if you're enjoying this session, we love it if you hit like or leave a comment. It really helps us get better at what we do. And honestly, that support is heartwarming. It's what keeps us going and motivates us to keep creating these deep dives for you.
We really do appreciate it.
Before we wrap up this session, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final, slightly provocative paradigm shift to mull over as you go about your day.
I love this one.
We live in a society that is intensely culturally conditioned to glorify the grind and the hustle. We are constantly taught by media and capitalism that more effort always inherently equals more reward, and that taking a day off is a glaring sign of moral weakness or lack of ambition.
It's everywhere.
But when it comes to the complex, delicate physiology of changing your physical body, when it comes to actual biological adaptation, your growth is entirely 100% dependent on your profound ability to rest.
Yes.
You have to be willing to do the quiet, unseen, entirely unglamorous work of recovery. You can't post a video of yourself sleeping on social media, but that's where the actual muscle is built.
Exactly. The work in the gym is just the spark. The rest is the fuel. So
Yeah.
the fundamental question you need to ask yourself as you embark on this physical journey is not just, do I have the savage discipline to go to the gym and work hard? Most people can muster that for an hour.
They can.
The real differentiating question is, do you have the quiet, unyielding discipline to rest, recover, eat, and sleep just as fiercely and obsessively as you work?
Do you have the discipline to rest? That is an incredibly powerful, perspective-shifting thought to leave on. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the noise, stick to the biological fundamentals, and we will see you next time.
Take care, everyone.